Let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Ms. Donna.
Ms. Miller? Ms. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Chesney?
Here.
Ms. Kearns?
Here.
Ms. Lanning? Mr. Moore?
Here.
I'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Approval of the agenda. Okay, but there is an addition, C8, Community Bond Survey.
That
It's-
was originally an attachment to the long-range plan, and it was decided it needed to be pulled out separate and explained, so we made a new item for it.
Perfect. I appreciate the explanation. Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the revised agenda.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Jennifer, would you call the vote, please?
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Chesney?
Yes.
Ms. Kearns?
Yes.
Ms. Lanning? Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And the motion passes 6-0. Okay. Items, bond update.
Yes, a couple things tonight. The first thing I want to share with you, just a little update on where we are with meeting some spending guidelines. Arbitrage is not a song by Beastie Boys, that's sabotage, but arbitrage is, I'm going to put it in layman's terms as much as I can. When we borrow money with a bond, we're allowed to make some money, but there is a limit to how much we can make with those investments. And so with that, there are some spending deadlines that we have to meet. And as long as we meet those deadlines, we don't have to refund that money to the IRS, okay? So it allows us to maximize, and it makes sense for us to invest those funds and make money while we're sitting on them or while we're working. And if you look at that, it shows you what our requirements are there down at the bottom in the middle a little bit above the graph section. We met that 10% requirement by December 4th of 24, and we have now met the 45% requirement by June 4th of 25. And so I just wanted to give you an update where we are on that. Arbitrage is not a bad thing if we have to pay it back to the IRS. It's just one of those things that it's not that we lose the money, it's just that we haven't completely maximized as much as we could. And if you can see up there, if you look up under the section that says arbitrage status, that $225,000, that would be about the difference that we would end up having to pay back to the IRS. We would make that an investment, but we'd have to send that much back to the IRS. So we would much rather use that $225,000 in the district as opposed to give it back to the IRS. So just wanted to update you on where that stood there.
So where are we at now? So you are anticipating the 225 to go back, or
No.
That's
We're-
the max?
That's what we would have to if we don't meet these other spending
Oh, okay.
deadlines.
Okay, but right now, everything's,
Right now, we're
Okay.
on track. We've met the first two spending deadlines. I anticipate that we'll meet them all.
perfect.
Okay. Next, kind of give you the regular monthly update on the bond projects. Science and technology upgrades. I'm going to go from the bottom up this time instead of, I'll change it up a little bit. Science and technology updates. Dr. Studer, Ms. Studer, our teams have been working closely with groups of teachers to finalize purchases for gifted education resources, elementary math materials, and middle school science resources to support the work with the core resource. So there's been a lot of input that's from staff that's been instrumental in selecting these resources so that they align with the instructional goals. So progress is moving along there. The last parts of purchases will happen there. HVAC upgrades, Ruby-Doo, that will start as soon as school is out. Right now, Edison, Eugene Field, and Mark Twain are all out for bid. It's our goal to be able to complete those projects all this summer. So
Can you
we've
say
got
those again? Edison,
Edison, Eugene Field, and Mark Twain.
thanks.
Fine arts, the upgrades, equipment pretty much has all been purchased at this point. There may be one or two. I think actually you have one change order that's coming this month. It relates to just some Bluetooth upgrades at Oak Grove and Carden Park. Garden Park and Oak Grove had all the newer speakers, things like that. We're gonna get them a few things, some microphones and things like that, so they have what everybody else has, but that'll be on a change order this month. Final, site walks are complete at those, so they're working on punch list items, so almost all the fine arts projects have been completed at this point. Sidewalks, Pickett should be starting soon. Parkway is 95% complete. If you get a chance to drive by there and take a look, that project looks good. And then Spring Garden, the bids are in on that, and we'll have a recommendation for approval at the May board meeting also. Road projects, Garden Park is essentially done. We're waiting for traffic light installation, and we're gonna wait till the year ends before, we're not gonna change the traffic pattern there right now with just a couple of weeks of school left. So we will, we'll do a new traffic pattern, train everybody all at the same time in August. Oak Grove is currently out for bid, and again, we'll plan to start that as soon as school's out. The tracks and fields, Central, they're installing the goalposts next week, pouring concrete for the high jump. The curbing around the exterior is 95% complete. It should be ready for turf within 1 to 2 weeks. Lafayette, the drainage and electrical are being installed. It should be ready for turf in 2 to 3 weeks. Benton, drainage and electrical are being installed. They did some rerouting of some existing water lines to make them more efficient, or basically put them in a better space. And they're also 1 to 2 weeks out from being ready for turf. Turf is confirmed. It's going to be in production at the factory on May 19th. And so we anticipate that we will start seeing turf going down on June 1st at different sites. So everything is on track there. And then Hosea, pretty exciting there. I was just down there this morning to take a look at it. They did a punch list walkthrough here in the last week. So they're finishing that up, and furniture is being delivered this week down there. So if you get a chance, stop down by there. It looks really nice. It's going to be a great addition down at Hosea. So a lot of things are getting close to the finish line. A lot of things are still in progress, but a lot of good stuff around the district, definitely.
I appreciate all of the updates. Is anything coming in like either under budget or over budget?
Yes and no. I mean, they're coming in both ways. We already have anticipated, we had said from the very beginning, anything that we had left over budget-wise in any individual project would go to HVAC or sidewalks. It's going to go to HVAC. We're probably not going to have enough time. Sidewalks, they just take a while. By the time you get all the permitting process and all that and everything, it's a little bit slower process. And so actually probably some of the money that we had budgeted even in sidewalks, we may bring a little bit of that to HVAC as well. But some things are coming in slightly under, some are coming in a little bit over. Collectively as a whole, though, we're in really good shape.
Perfect.
So Dr. Segrist, on the HVAC, it looks like we're running 2.4 out of a budget of 2.6.
Yeah.
And so with all these still out to bid, so we would plan to go over that.
Yeah, the Rubidoo project itself was 3.5, so we knew we were gonna go over in that HVAC area, so
Okay.
we're pulling from other areas for that. We're gonna try to get as much done, with bond money on those 3 schools this summer. And if we don't have enough bond money, we'll take it out of our CIP budget. But we wanna have those 3 schools done so that we don't have, the issues we had this past winter. And I hope people understand too, they may be wondering, why are we waiting to now to work on those? I've heard that question. You can't do a complete HVAC overhaul while the students are in the building. And so that's why a lot of this HVAC work needs to happen in the summer. Would have been great if we could have done it last fall, but it's not viable to do it while students are there.
Are there any additional questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Segrist. Parental leave. Dr. McGinnis?
Sure, and that was supposed to be Dr. Edgar. He couldn't be with us here tonight, but we did have a call with him at 12:30 this afternoon. He wanted us to communicate that he has provided information that was requested by board members, and wanted people to know that we have received some feedback. And I know I personally received feedback from both sides, but since we do have a benefits committee, We are going to recommend that that go through that process and be vetted through our benefits committee to make that recommendation. If they do make that recommendation, then we would support it. But we think it should go through the process.
So who's the benefits committee?
That would be, well,
The Benefits Committee, there are three committees: Benefits, Insurance, and Calendar. Dr. Sechrist has been running the insurance, Dr. McGinnis the calendar, and I've been doing the Benefits Committee since it was developed. There are 25 slots available on each of those committees for anyone who wants them. I think last year on the Benefits Committee, we had 18. We're always encouraging people to come on, so there's definitely room for new members, and I know we have 2 of the 18 who are retiring, so there would be as many as 9 positions open there. That committee has been very valuable in letting district administration know what the overall employee feelings are on various issues. We do surveys, we find out those kinds of things. So that's the main reason for the administrative recommendation to allow that to go through that process.
So that leaves it up to that committee to come up with the things that they're really wanting or hoping for?
Well, if you'll
through
remember,
benefits?
the last couple of years, and we've done this since that committee started, which I think was 6 years ago, every year, whoever is in Dr. Sechrist's position was Dr. Edgar when we started, now him. I will say to them somewhere in the process, how much money do we have to work with? We get a figure that's given to the benefits committee. They brainstorm about how it should be allocated. It's not a decision-making committee, it's advisory in nature. And so what they do, we always come up with, these are our top 10 items. If the board wants to approve any of these, we suggest it be done in this order. Sometimes the board follows the order that we give them, sometimes they don't, and sometimes there's no additional money to do anything. But it is the best way that I feel like that we've been able to allow staff input, widespread staff input into those kinds of decisions.
We're kind of confused in terms of it's salary, insurance, and calendar. Those are the 3 committees. So we're kind of muddying with the benefits word, but salary, insurance, and so, for example, a couple of things that have come through insurance the last couple of years, that's where the child care reimbursement came through that. The TRIA insurance that we added, the Smart Shopper that we've added, those are some of the things, the before and after care, those things have come through those committees. So that's kind of how some of those things have come up in the past.
So those are preferences of those who are attending the committee meetings or having input, and that's staff?
Those are things that are discussed, yeah, and that staff includes teachers, includes paras, it includes support staff, operations people, administrators. So it's a wide variety across the
And
board.
in the years since we've had those committees, we've never had to turn anyone away from a committee. So there's always room for people to give their input should they desire to.
Okay.
Okay, so question, are the individuals of the committee, are they, getting the ideas and the input, like, of the people in their building, and then they're bringing it to the committee, or is it their own wills, I guess I'm sure, that's what I'm asking.
It could come either way. And I'll give you an example. The insurance committee, something that they've discussed multiple times over the last 3 years are the addition of bariatric surgery is being covered. We've also have discussed the C1, like drugs like Ozempic, things like that. Those have been brought through the committee. We've researched those. We've looked at the costs. Those 2 things were not very cost viable. But those are the type of things. Anyone can, send any of us an email, say, we'd like this to go through the committee. We'd suggest this for the committee. They can suggest it to a committee member, and a committee member can bring it. They've come multiple ways.
To answer your question, though, I've had people from Early Learning Center, from Hilliard, and they kind of speak on behalf of their unique situations. Of course, I have academic calendar committee, so it's a little bit different, but they typically come with an and understanding and input from their staff in the building.
So there is opportunity, so was this something that they brought or said, hey, we're really pushing for this, or was it lower on their list because other things seemed more important to them?
So you know how this already came to be. We've already talked about this. We've talked about this for 4 months. So you know how this came to be. I brought it up. I said
still
it was
have a
something that was
question
good.
about it.
And I'm answering it,
But I didn't know how it came up.
So what I'm
The answer to your
explaining
question is
I
paid
brought it to
parental
the
leave
board.
wasn't on their list at all.
Okay.
So I brought it to the board. We've talked about it for what, 4 months now. There's been back and forth about how I've shared with you, I think I've sent you all 5 or 6 different staff people that have said how our current PTO structure doesn't support new parents. So I understand that there's a committee process. We aren't ever involved in that, which is fine if that's how we choose to do things. I tend to believe that if there's something that can address a need of the staff and that's good for the staff, that we should do it. Again, I've shared 6 maybe emails of people that have said, my pay's been docked. I had 9 years of good attendance and still wasn't able to meet the need. I understand the short-term disability argument, disagree with it. I understand, this policy doesn't affect everyone equally, but not all policies do. We've added a step to the end of the salary schedule for retirees to keep people on longer. We've done a lot of things. I'm not gonna continue to argue why this is good for our staff, why it's good for newborns. There's plenty of research on that. We send people into Mosaic Life Care every day to talk about how a parent spending the most time with their child when they're first born, why that's better for everyone's health. I don't believe that it negatively affects instruction. Bringing a mom back from delivery early. We're mostly moms on this board. We understand what you go through with that. Especially in education, we're about one of the only careers that counts things in minutes. My classroom is 3 minutes late coming back from specials and how that can negatively affect things. Imagine if you are leaking through your shirt or bleeding through your pants. So I don't think that our structure currently supports moms. I do think it's a policy that everyone can adopt. You get time for that. But I won't continue to argue that point, and we can move on.
My point though is that, like I addressed it, is that it's hard to make a decision without having any data right in front of me. So I went and looked up what people did around us, and you're right, there is some positive to it. I never said I opposed this. So, but there is districts that are doing stuff around us. It's not the paid 6 weeks, is 2 weeks, and it's been well liked, but I agree, I wanted to know who does it go through, just so I know who looks up this research before it comes to us to make a vote on something. Here's the policy, this is what you're supposed to vote on. That's not enough.
What you're gonna find is that when you bring ideas, if administrators don't want to implement it, they won't give you all the information up front very often. That's what I believe has happened here.
Yeah, that's not true, Whitney. I'm just telling you that's not true.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
don't question my ethics on something like that, Whitney. Okay? I'm gonna
Okay.
leave it at that.
Okay. I have asked for information and for data for months. For months I've asked for that. But that's not what's wanted.
What information and data have you not been given that you've asked me for?
I have, so I'll clarify, these are my conversations with Dr. Edgar. So unfortunately he's not here.
Well, and last month, I will just tell you, because it came out, that there are districts on the west side of the state that do this. I sent that information to every Northwest Massa superintendent. I didn't go into the Kansas City area. You're right. I didn't go through every 521 districts in the state of Missouri. I sent it to the Northwest Massa superintendents, and I sent it to the Moasbo board to try to get a broad spectrum of some general idea of what districts were doing. That's the information I brought back. And so I did not pick a side on this issue. I brought that information back, so I just want to be clear that there's not been any withholding of information from me.
And I apologize if that felt as though I was saying that. I clarified in my email to you last week that that was not what I was saying. What the email correspondence that we had was that we didn't think it was happening on the west side of the state. After that meeting, multiple people reached out to us and said that that they're doing some things that are much more modest. I asked last week, can we get some feedback? If we can't do 6 weeks, could we do 2? I didn't get anything. So that is my point, is if we see that there's a problem and we're asking for information, if 6 weeks is not enough, we still have this issue. So could we get some feedback other than just wait till next year, and if it comes up next year? Because all of next year, we're gonna have these same stories happening to our staff. That's
So
my concern.
My concern was that if the staff has opportunity to have input into these committees, and that it hasn't been on the top tier to bring before the board for, to put out that kind of information, to see it, to give the money, then it can't be done just on the 5 or 6. I know there's more, and because it's coming out like this doesn't mean we are against those people who have written you emails concerning this that you have forwarded to us. Nobody's against that, but I think what they have told us was that it wasn't on their priority list to present to the board to have something done about it. That's how I have heard it.
And I understand that, Kim, but my point is, if there is something that's affecting our staff, rather than saying, we're gonna wait a year, and if it comes up again in 10 months, then we'll address it then. But again, if this is not something that people want to move forward with, then it takes 4 people to move it forward, so that's fine.
I'm looking at it like this. As a board, we should decide if we're going to put it on the agenda to take a vote or not.
I would rather see it go through the facilities committees and get the staff and teacher input. I just feel like that would be the correct way to go.
Yeah. To get more
And
than
that's
just a few
perfectly
people.
Okay, so
who
not
voice.
putting it on the agenda.
No.
I agree with that.
What do you guys think?
I'd take it to the committee.
Next year.
Okay, so Rhonda, what do you think?
I think go through the committee like we do the calendar and other things that come from the board. Yeah.
So just
Okay,
to
well then
put-
a majority of the board say, to put this on the agenda, put it through the committees and let them figure it out. Okay,
So just to be clear in the future, say if we do come up with an idea, or something, we can send it to the committee to have them review, or?
Well, certainly. I mean,
Okay.
like, as Dr. Seeker said, the ideas come from all over.
Right.
From, classified staff, certified
Yes.
staff, administration.
well, or the board can choose, to act on our own too.
Okay.
Yeah, and you always have that right as well. If, just as an example, if you guys don't like what came from the committee, you can say, no, we don't want to do that, we are going to do this. You always have that right, you're the governing body of the.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to number 3, benchmark advance. Ms. Studer?
Good evening. What I'm sharing with you tonight is just informational. I hope to bring this back as an action item on that May 27th board meeting. And so just sharing with you a little snapshot of the literacy work that's happened in the St. Joseph School District this year. In alignment with the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE came out in August of 2024 and approved 3 core resources to use as in ELA instruction. And so those 3 resources were Amplify, Wonders, and the Benchmark Advanced. We had Wonders in the past as a district core resource for ELA instruction. And so after consulting with teachers, it was decided that we were going to pilot 2 resources, the Benchmark Advanced and Amplify CKLA. With that, in second quarter, we piloted Benchmark Advanced, and then in the third quarter, we piloted Amplify. We brought the team of teachers back, and it is their recommendation that we lead with the Benchmark Advanced as a core ELA resource. Now, I know that we've talked about UFly and all that work, but UFly, understand, that's why I also shared with you the literacy structure. That is explicit and systematic phonics instruction that takes place in the reading foundations. What the Benchmark Advanced will do is it'll provide on-grade level mentor text to use in classroom instruction. And so I shared with you guys the Benchmark Advanced contract for 3 years versus a 6-year contract. And after consulting with, again, teachers and district leadership, it is recommended that we go with the 6-year contract because of cost savings, basically, in the long-term range of that. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The other thing I want to do is I do want to thank the team of teachers. We had 23 teachers lead this pilot. I just want to give a special shout out to each one. Each one was very strategic in the thinking of this. So we had the kindergarten team at Lindbergh lead this work, the first grade team at Carden Park lead this work, the second grade team at Bessie Ellison, the third grade team at Edison led this work, the fourth grade team at Field, the fifth grade team at Lindbergh, and the sixth grade team at Coleman, in consultation with Spring Garden, that sixth grade team over there.
I have a question about, because I know there's a deficit in the area of writing. So, and I don't even know if you can answer this or not, but what does writing look like in this curriculum? Because I have a concern about that.
Absolutely. So when I was a classroom teacher, that mentor text, the grade level text that you bring to the table, became your anchor text for not only your reading, but also your writing as well. And so there is writing instruction. There's also critical thinking questions. What I'm trying to ensure that everything is presented on grade level in our literacy instruction. And right now, we do not have a core ELA resource except UFly. And so I'm trying to ensure equity and access and that we hold to the standard in which the state is setting. Our teachers currently right now use a hodgepodge mix things, and so we can see how that's kind of leading to the student outcomes, and again, just observational data from principals and administrator. When you don't have a core quality resource and you're going out just wherever to find your resource, the high mobility here in St. Joe, especially at the elementary level, doesn't favor us. And so with the adoption of that core resource, we can ensure that in the first quarter, all students are reading these fictional and non-fictional pieces. Same thing with second, third, fourth quarter as well. And this benchmark series, they only write literacy. They don't write all the things, which also in the feedback from teachers played into the recommendation. I never want to lead with a resource. I want to lead with the standards and what our master teachers have told us is good, solid ELA instruction. And this is going to be the catalyst, I believe, to move us forward in our academic outcomes, to ensuring, again, that we have quality and access to on-grade level instruction.
I have another question. Sure. So does this correlate well with the district curriculum map?
It does, and that was one of the reasons. And here's the other reason, the other resource we piloted, the feedback from the K-1-2 team shared with us, we want to lead with print-rich environments. Print-rich, not digital, not out there. We want to lead with print, like hand in hand. And the pilot that we led with Amplify provided very little print-rich environment.
That's a problem.
Yes. And where our literacy scores are, I wanted to stick with the approved DESE resources. We do have some schools on comprehensive and targeted, and in case something that would happen, or in our work with DESE, they would ask us, are you using one of the state-approved core resources? And I would be able to answer yes to that question.
Yeah, So when the public asks, hey, what are you guys doing to improve test scores? This would be a big one, right?
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be. And again, I'm nerding out right now, sharing with you guys all this information, but the best thing about the benchmark series is that it is 10 units, and they recommend, or they say that you have to lead with the 8 units, and then you could use the 9 and 10 units for summer school, so that you're ensuring high quality instruction in summer school as well.
So will this start in the fall then?
Yes, we're ready to rock and roll with it. So I know this is just a small thing, but it's been a huge thing for our academic service team. I can't thank Dr. McGinnis and Dr. Adams and Dr. Gilpin. The whole team has really poured into this to ensure that we're leading this for our kids.
Good. I like that it's across the board because we are mobile from one school to another. So it's nice to have it the same. So when they go to the next school, they're on the same page.
Yeah, and those mentor pieces, like I said, I've been exposed to it at Carden Park and Bessie Ellis, and we're all looking at high quality on grade level text.
And I don't know if you can answer this or not, Stacia, but do you know how DESE, what process they went through, since they only chose 3 and there's a whole bunch out there? Do you know what process they used in order to come to the conclusion these were the 3 best ones?
Yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to share that rubric with the board on that. I know it was really tight. In fact, last year I knew this was a missing piece. Unfortunately, last year DESE had only approved 1 core resource, which was Wonders, and I had already gotten feedback from teachers that we did not want to go down that direction. And so my stomach kind of hurt when I heard that because that just meant a more pause and again, that we were we were so close to that edge. I wanted to ensure it was a state-approved resource that was going to be right for our district.
Yeah, because the concern I have is I do know what Wonders looks like, and that
Yes.
is a little bit concerning that that is one that they chose. So that's why I'm curious. They're thinking behind the other 2.
Ms. Chesney, I heard that it was totally revised. I heard Wonders was totally revised in their scope and sequence and the text that they were leading. There were so many teachers left from that work that they just didn't feel comfortable leading with that pilot.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Are there any additional questions or comments?
So my
Okay,
job is to
excellent.
share that rubric with you guys that outlines the vetting process at the state level, because I asked that question too to DESE. The second item on 4, now we're turning our attention to secondary. And I want to first thank the community for your ongoing support of STEM initiatives and all the STEM resources that you guys have provided for our students. They were much needed, microscopes, all the great things that scientists need to conduct experiments. And what's really missing right now, and I've shared with our superintendent's cabinet and our academic service team, is the meat, right? We don't have a core resource for science. And when I go to work with new teachers at the secondary level, and we have a lot of new teachers in science work. I believe we have currently 5 openings right now. One of the first questions that a new teacher will ask me is, what is the core resource that you as a district use? Like, what text support do you provide? And so the same thing our team did was we led a pilot at the middle and the high school level, and we let teachers look through that. Now, there was not a state-approved resource, like there is as strict as it is in literacy instruction, but we did work with DESE. Oh, I think the microphone went out, I'm sorry. I'm really loud, I used to coach, so. We did lead with DESE. DESE shared with us the resource. Dr. Gurman down at DESE, she's the head curriculum director down there, and she met with our teacher teams and in collaboration with a very dedicated group of educators as well. I'm presenting you hopefully just an informational item right now, but an action item for our May 27th meeting. And that action item is that based off the feedback from teachers, that the decision we would recommend is to adopt Amplify as the core resource for grades 6 to 8. And the core resource for grades 9 to 12 in science instruction is SAVIS.
Is what?
SAVIS. And that, again, was a pilot. And so in the second quarter, they used one resource. I actually went over to Benton and sat with a group of students and got some student feedback on this resource. You know, they're capable of sharing with me what resource supported you in your work with science instruction. And the group from Benton and the group from Lafayette and Colin went over to Central to connect with the Central students. And all of them agreed that SAVIS instruction provided the quality of information in charts and graphs, what scientists use to read, and again, practice like what you would encounter on ACT assessment items and any science assessment piece that you would lead up, especially for experiments. Like, you don't just go conduct an experiment, right? You have informational text in front of you that tells you how to conduct those experiments. And again, that's really what's missing from our science instruction right now at the high school and middle school level.
Are there any additional questions or comments?
Just one, could you help us, Stacia, understand how to kind of look at the money part of this? So is some of this a replacement for money we're already spending? Is this all new spend, or is it a combination?
Mr. Moore, that's such a great question. You know, when we were going through COVID, what happened was we really did a bloat on, I would call, like, digital tools, electronic tools. We went that way because guess what? That's where we were conducting most of our learning, was in a virtual setting. What Mr. Kelly, myself, and Lee Dahl down the hall here are doing is we're reallocating, like, I'm taking away some of those software pieces, and I really wanted to enhance student outcomes, and that's where we're trying to move money to support core resources. It doesn't do us any good to have tools that don't support content knowledge, the learning, the informational piece. And so I appreciate those tools. I do, to conduct an engagement, but there are free tools that can do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Studer.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Kraus?
Okay, I want to just talk with you just briefly. This is obviously it's just an information item tonight. We've been in the process of reviewing all of our job descriptions. I found out when we started this, we have 496 job descriptions. There have been about 280, 290 of them reviewed so far. The other, I'll bring them to you for final approval in May, and then in June at the information meeting, we'll bring the remainder of those I didn't get to for this month for approval at the June meeting. There have been lots of people involved in this, a lot of people doing a lot of work, about 20 people who are reviewing them. Just to let you know what I did with every grouping, let's take my office for example. For HR, there are 7 of us, and I sent the job descriptions to the supervisor of those people and then to myself. So Heather Adams reviewed those people underneath her. I reviewed them all, and I reviewed Heather's, and then we came to a decision about whether they needed revision or not. They're falling into 3 categories. There are a few that are no longer active that we'll save them, but put them in an inactive file. There are some that don't require any revision, so those will not come to the board because there's nothing changed. And then what you have in the attachments that I gave you were the ones that had revisions suggested for them. So between now and next meeting, assuming that, well, with all those that are in there, I'll go in and I'll change the red to black, take out the strike-throughs so that you would see the finished product of all of those job descriptions. And then we'll start the cycle again for the first meeting in June and approval for the last one in June. Are there any questions from anyone?
As I mentioned in the email earlier, I really appreciate all of this work. I mean, I know that it arrived at the last minute, you know, to you, and you're leaving us at the end of next month, and I do appreciate you completing this
No
ahead of you
problem.
leaving.
I intend to work till the last minute I'm here.
Did we end up identifying any positions that didn't have job descriptions? That was like a issue that we thought we had, we didn't think we had?
No, I don't believe there are any that we don't have job descriptions for. Some of them have more significant modifications than others, but I haven't found anything. You know, like one simple example, we had a bunch of them that were ESOL something, well, that's now ELL.
Right.
So all of those required changes. The major text and responsibilities didn't change, but the name. So a lot of them were simple like that. The ones that had the most revision, as a general rule, were those that came from Hilliard. Dr. Huntsman did some significant revision on most of those.
And I see that in one of those, I was gonna ask you, so are they added job duties to them, or are they just more detailed?
More detailed.
Okay.
She gave hers to me in a little different format. Many of them just modified them. She rewrote entire sections, so I would just cut and paste entire sections in there. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Cross. Board of Vacancy. If you look at the agenda, there's a rubric attached.
Should be.
Did you get that attached?
Yes, I did.
I looked at the last time that the board did this process, and we used a rubric in order to look at the applications and to score the applicants as a way to give us an idea or like a feel prior to the interviews. And then we also interviewed all the candidates, and there was a list of questions we used. And so I'm asking members of the board if you would email me before tomorrow. The applications are due at what time? 4?
Yes.
If you can email me 2-3 questions that you would like asked at the meeting or to ask at the meeting. I'll compile all of those. And then we will attach them to the agenda if there's time.
Could you tell me,
I want there to be time.
where is that?
There's no rubric.
Is the rubric?
It's down below for
Down
the
below.
board policy review process. It's attached to that.
How bizarre.
To the
Showing under
vacancy.
supporting documents.
Well, it's looking up.
But it's
This one?
on, it's
Yeah.
on my supporting
Yeah.
for board policy review.
Scores 1 through 5.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere
Okay, well, it's
It's-
looking,
down below.
Yeah.
Down
if you're able to
I
look,
have it under
don't
board
see it.
vacancy too, showing on mine, that's weird.
yeah, it's
I
looking.
don't see it at all.
Well, okay, so I'll
Okay.
email it.
Check number 9. right
Okay, so
there.
we'll email it after the meeting
Refresh, see
too.
if it's there,
Okey dokey.
because I just took it off and put it back on real quick.
Okay. And so,
There it is.
Yeah.
it's there now. Okay, good.
I don't know
No,
why
it's
it
not
showed
under the-
under board
I
policy
must not be
review,
clicking on the right one.
but it was showing on mine,
And
as long as you've got it.
just a refresh, applications are due
Is it this one?
tomorrow afternoon by 4. And everyone that's given an application
So,
is also invited to the Wednesday meeting. And we'll be able to look at the applications. It is an open meeting, it's not
and
closed.
it's in this one. Okay.
And then interview the applicants, and we will choose a person on that evening. Are there any questions about the process?
Is there a time limit for them, or we're just gonna go through each question, or like, how does that look?
I think we'll give everyone like a couple of minutes, you know, to answer the question. I mean, of course, not like 10 minutes each question. I'm thinking after like I look at the questions, it should be like about 10 questions, and so everybody will at least get 20 minutes or so for an interview. And then at last counts, it was 4 applications.
I believe. Because I know I had one, came in after I left the
Okay.
office today, so I have not gotten to that one yet.
And so, and then
If you show
according
3, then it is 4, 'cause
to the policies, we will be choosing a person on that evening. It's been lots of questions like, well, what if it's a tie? What if it's a tie? Well, bring a pillow and a blanket and snacks, because we're choosing a person that evening.
Well, Susan Goldhammer said that we could go all year without filling that spot, if that's the case.
I think it's in the best interest of
It's
the
always
district
been
in
a
order to choose a person. And I'm confident that we can agree on somebody.
I'm a little detailing oriented, so I just want to make sure I have this in my head, what this is going to look like.
It's okay, go ahead.
So we're all sending our questions to you.
Mhm.
You're going to formulate them or
Mhm.
put them in a document, send them back to us.
Yes.
How are we deciding who gets to be interviewed first? Do we have a process of just the
by
first?
how they came,
how they came in.
It's the
turned
order
it
of the
in.
application.
Okay, and
They have
then,
all the applications stamped as to what time and what
Okay.
date they came in.
and then we just, so then from the questions we ask, whenever I get this rubric to come up on my thing, we'll use that rubric to score
Right.
them.
Yes.
So similar to what we did for the superintendent
Mhm.
search. Okay,
Be just like that.
And
And-
they're all
yeah.
getting the same question, I'm sorry.
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Hedge had mentioned people being present during the interviews. He had a question or a conversation, concerns from last time.
Mhm.
So it's an open meeting.
Yes. Right.
Anyone can be here, anyone can stay, there's no secret deliberation.
Fair. Mhm.
I think it sounded like from his question or his comments
Yeah.
that there was concern about that.
There was,
I think so.
the last time we did this, there was one person who stayed
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
here, but everybody
Because
else left.
everybody else
yeah,
chose to leave.
Yeah.
But that was their choice to leave,
Yeah.
I guess.
Correct.
Yes, I mean,
One chose
anyone's
to
able to
stay.
come,
Or go.
because it is an open meeting, exactly, so.
So can we make that statement as we start the process,
Mhm.
that it's an open meeting, everybody can stay, so that
Yep,
we're
and
all
we
on
just
that
did.
same page?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but if they're not here tonight,
Mhm.
they wouldn't, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
might not know. If we could just make that clear to start with.
Yep. Are there any other questions about the process?
So when we fill out the rubric, does that count like our vote, like it's public too, right? Whatever we put down, then, okay.
And then in the meantime, if there's any additional questions, either just email or text me. Next one, Dr. McGinnis?
Sure. We are in the process of collecting data from our community and internal stakeholders as far as our new vision and mission. If you recall back from Vision Forward Days, that was part of their priorities, specifically to collectively develop and communicate a new vision for our district. And so we are doing that in alignment with our Portrait of a Graduate work. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those, but that has been launched. It will close on Wednesday, and then hopefully we will be able to determine a new vision and mission and values.
I had actually asked to make this as an agenda item since I didn't know anything about the process or like about the survey or anything until I think there was a news article, and then people began to ask me about the survey, and I thought it was about the other one. And so I was just wondering about the process, who's involved, and then about when would you like our input as a board? Like, Because if we're getting a new mission and a vision, I mean, I think that we should have input in that, so.
Dr. Lau had actually, she's led this process, and I know she's communicated with Dr. Edgar as far as involving the board. I did send out a survey on Friday on my weekly update, and I've given a little bit of an update. I know early April, Dr. Lau has been leading some focus groups. She did a little activity with our soups cabinet. She met with students. She met with our ELD department. She's been leading those groups in this work, gathering feedback, and then also created the survey based off of all the feedback we had internally to make it a little simpler for communities, so not to give them 10, 12 options. They just have 3 options to choose from.
I have a question. And when did it go out? And who did it go out to?
Last Thursday, it went out to internal stakeholders, all staff, and then also all parents, and I believe with our whole community. Eileen might be able to speak to confirm that. Correct? Okay.
And so it's the address that's listed, it's the parental email address that's listed in Power School?
Should be.
Okay. Because a lot of times I never receive a survey.
Interesting.
And my emails never changed in about 18, 19 years.
It was attached to your work, because I just pulled it up to check.
On
It's attached to
my
your-
weekly update?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think that, to me, the point is, if we're parents in the district and we're not getting it, then there might be an issue with parents in the district getting
Yeah,
it.
certainly. I'll get with communications department and see if there's an issue there or
Okay.
what the problem was. You should have received it as a parent, for sure.
Because I never received the community bond one either.
I didn't see either
Interesting.
of those. I saw them on
Mm-mm.
Facebook.
I got the
That's
link
exactly-
online, but I didn't,
Let me check that
I
with
didn't receive it.
communications.
I didn't get it either.
and I looked,
The bond was.
I looked like in my junk mail and everything, and so that's why I was wondering about the process. Like, I mean, if I'm not getting it, and I've been a parent in the district for over 20 years, so,
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure what went wrong.
I mean, I don't. And so, what's the next step?
The next step will be to finalize that. I can tell you, we've had over 500 survey responses as of today, which is not as much as we had on the bond survey. I'm wondering if we have a little bit of survey fatigue going on, but then we will
I bet they
finalize.
think it's the same one too, because they're so close. And they were open about the same time, like, because when I was asked about it, I thought it was the same one since I didn't have any information to go off of.
Sure,
And I almost did too, to be honest.
sure. I apologize for the confusion. Yeah, this has been a year-long process with the portrait of a graduate, and so this was kind of the next phase of that work with refining our vision, mission, values, and just rebranding a bit.
And the goal is to rewrite those?
With community input. It was part of our vision, forward priority also.
Okay. I'm just concerned a little bit about if there is an issue about the survey, and then there's not a lot of response. It really isn't would you please stop? I think I've been nice, but I'm just asking you to be quiet. Can you please do that? Thank you. I'm just concerned about it's not a representative of the community if there's like only like a few hundred, you know what I'm saying?
Yep, I'll have to get with communications and see where the issue's at.
Really?
Really? Did I say
I'm,
something?
yes, you did, and I heard you, and I'm asking you to stop. If you're not able to be respectful, if you're not able to be respectful in this boardroom,
You don't make stuff up.
then you're not gonna be in this boardroom.
I didn't say anything.
I'm asking you
Okay, I did
to be
not say
quiet,
anything,
so stop
don't
talking.
approach me and
Stop
say I
talking.
did.
Stop talking.
I will get with communications tomorrow and see what the issue is and see if we can send it out.
I appreciate that, thank you. Next, Miss Eileen?
Okay, good evening. We were just talking about surveys, so as you're aware, the district conducted a survey after the loss of the April 2025 bond issue. The survey included 10 questions, and it was available beginning on Tuesday, April 29th, and it closed on Wednesday, May 6th. The purpose was to understand why the bond failed and to garner feedback from staff, families, and the community. So I have a few highlights just to review this evening as information for you. The survey was opened again, like I said, on April 29th and closed on May 6th. And we had 3,084 completed surveys that have been received. So the first question was, I'm just going to go through these very quickly, and the information Ms. Baker will place on Assembly so people will be able to see the results. How familiar were you with details of the project? Very familiar, 47%, somewhat familiar, 38%, not very familiar, 9.8%, and not at all familiar, 5.2%. Where did you get most of your information? These were just the top 4 responses. Social media was 56%, local news 50.5%, the district website 39.8%, and friends, family, or neighbors 36%. Did the district provide enough information to make an informed decision about the bond? Yes, 37.8%, no, 49.6%, and not sure, 12.7%. Did you vote in the recent bond election? 74.6% said yes, 15.2% said no, and 10.2% said that they were not eligible to vote. If you voted no, which of the following best describes your reasons? Didn't trust how the funds would be managed was 62.6%. Didn't believe a new high school was necessary, 48.1%. Taxes are already too high, 47.6%. Want a different solution, renovation was the most common answer, 47.1%. Didn't have enough information, 42.4%. The cost was too high, 29.6%. Didn't agree with the timeline or the scope, 13.4%. And don't support school-related taxes in general, 5%. How important do you think it is for the community to have a new high school facility in the next 5 to 10 years? Extremely important, 47.8%. Somewhat important, 21.8%. Not very important, 16.6%. And not at all important, 13.9%. What aspects of the new high school project were most important to you? Modern classrooms and learning spaces, 69.8%. Safety and security improvement, 61.9%. Career technical education, 49.2%. Athletic extracurricular activities, 33.9%. Energy efficiency and sustainability, 26.4%. And accessibility or ADA compliance, 21.4%. The survey participants were given an opportunity to respond to a question with their written comments. We did that on 3 different questions. There were many duplicate comments, so what I did was I broke it down into the 5 most popular categories. That was the plan, communications, taxes, trust factor, and just miscellaneous. So just briefly just share with you some of those highlights. Did you feel the district provided enough information to make an informed decision about the bond? That was Plan A. It said the plan was too vague. Some people said the exact location needed to be told for the new school. Needed boundary information and transportation information. Needed feeder pattern information as well as redistricting. Middle school and elementary information and closures. The plan was outlined and clear. Didn't want bigger schools, and upgrade what you currently have. In the area of communications, it was more information or details needed about the plan. There were too many unanswered questions. More information about the impact on elementary and middle schools, the impact on teachers and staff if we move to 2 high schools. Talking about Plan B was forcing a yes vote, and provide a complete strategy, for example, the use of buildings if they are closed. Taxes, big tax increase for homeowners, large elderly retired population that can't afford higher taxes, and $157 million seems like a lot for 1 school. In the trust area was the campaign lacked transparency. There were lies, threats, and scare tactics. can't trust the board and administration with tax dollars and not sure how the money would be managed properly. The district doesn't care what taxpayers say, and new schools don't equal better education. And then in the miscellaneous category, it was asking voters to give up on tradition. People made assumptions. They believed all 3 high schools would remain open if there was a no vote. People don't understand the district's vision, and the board and district did all that they could, but the community said no. So written responses, if you voted no, which best describes your reason, not enough detail, work on education issues like achievement, graduation rates, attendance first, want to keep 3 high schools and have smaller school buildings, too many students in the district to have only 2 high schools, and decreased opportunities for academics and athletics. Several people said that they voted yes, but they had reservations. What aspects of the new high school project were most important to you? The number 1 was equalizing the education opportunities for all high school students. Right-sizing the school district, not sustainable, what we are doing now. Student morale and pride in our school district. Performing Arts Center was mentioned. Invest in our community and attract businesses and professionals to the community, and it would provide a better opportunity for students. And then what feedback would you like to share with the board or administration? Follow through what you stated and go to 2 high schools. Keep doing what you are doing. If a new high school is not an option, I'd prefer upgrades and renovations to the existing schools. Academics should be the main focus. I understand the need to right-size schools, but I don't believe this should be done to the detriment of our children. The official plan was never fully understood. People don't know where it would be built and want land purchased before voting, or at least a confirmed location. And then finally, what the community said that they wanted as a result of this, really basically 3 things. A plan with specifics, boundaries, feeder patterns, staffing, and that includes middle school and elementary school, as well as the high school. What the cost would be, and a timeline. So those are just basically what was said. Again, all the information will be posted that people can view online, but Ms. Baker will post later today. Are there any questions? And we will definitely check. I apologize if there are not people who are getting our emails. If there are parents that are not receiving them, first thing in the morning, I will get with Ashley to see what the problem may be that you all aren't receiving. People on our own board not receiving our surveys, there's a problem there. So we need to figure out what that is and to rectify that. And so we'll be on top of that. Anything else? Thank you.
I appreciate you, Ms. Eileen. I know that I had emailed over to Dr. Edgar and over to Dr. McGinnis, and I had also included you about my concerns, maybe everybody on the board. Maybe I emailed everybody on the board about my concerns about the survey. Like, I know that online, like, I was noticing a lot of individuals almost bragging about being able, you know, to take this every day or on their phone and their iPad and on the computer. And that makes me kind of hesitant about the results if a individual's, you know, able to take it lots of times.
I can address that.
Okay.
Okay, so we heard that from lots of different postings. So I am not a tech person. So this is coming from the tech people who helped do the survey. So we used a cookie base. When I think of cookies, I think Ashley bringing chocolate chip and oatmeal cookies in to work. So, but we used a cookie base restriction, and that discouraged multiple submissions. So we couldn't use the same IP address because we have people in all these different buildings. So that would, the first person that took it, then anybody after that in the building would not be able to take it. So we had to come up with a method to make sure that everybody who wanted to participate could respond to it. What Ashley did was she went back through and looked, and she filtered out-of-town responses. She was able to do that, or any appearances that was duplicates, and we still had over 2,000 valid responses out of 3,000. So there was a way that we were able to set this up, and she reviewed the metadata, and that's just the way as a big school district that we're gonna have to operate. I know that private companies can do other things, but we've got thousands of people who may wanna participate, and so we did our due diligence in figuring out the best way that we could use this so that there wouldn't be multiples, but she was able to go in and see if there were multiple times and extract those. So while 3,024 took it, valid were about 2,000 that we could find in the search.
I appreciate your concern, and I think that the questions were good and the responses are helpful for us to kind of know, to reflect. I think what concerns me is that there's a fourth of the respondents admittedly did not vote. A fourth weren't eligible to vote or admittedly did not vote. So then you have to take a fourth of those out, and then of the 75% that are left, how many of them weren't actually voters? So, it's still good feedback, I suppose, to have.
I don't know, I think it might encourage them to vote next time if they get to have their opinions said. But on these responses, are these just your top responses that you've gotten? Is that what you put on here?
Yes, we heard those same responses that I read to you multiple times. So I went through each response and then kind of put them in a bucket. So I heard high taxes over and over. So that's one of the things that I told you tonight. But when you see the responses on the survey, you'll see every response that was written is recorded there on the survey. So you'll see all of them. But I just gave you just a thumbnail top shelf comments tonight that were the most responses, most popular responses.
I had asked a question of Gabe, because I was listening to people talk about this and everything. Okay, so, and he clarified earlier today, is that the results of this are not like, it's not going to change our long-range plan, correct?
Correct. We are meeting administratively to ensure that Plan B is feasible as far as DLR is coming on Friday. And it's kind of going into the next agenda item, but we are looking at Lafayette High School and we're looking at Central High School. There's a lot of work that goes into Plan B as far as how many middle schools do you have, elementary boundaries, all of those pieces that weren't clearly defined, and now we're going through that process. But the first step is to look at Lafayette and Central and look at the spacing there, which we're doing on Friday.
Because I know that there were lots of individuals in the community. And then it was also mentioned early on in this, that there were people like, well, if a lot of us answer to keep open all three schools, then it's what it will be. And that's not correct, right?
Administratively, we still believe we are a two-high school town. And honestly, the priority for that is staffing. I'm not for sure if everyone understands the staffing at all three high schools. But with enrollment numbers dropping to what they currently are, we can condense resources, and we should be doing that to operate efficiently.
Okay.
So my question is,
I'm sorry, are we on number 8 still or number 9?
Well, I feel like we moved to the next one on the
Yes,
long-range
yes.
plan.
Are there any other questions about number 8? Is your question about number 8? Okay, let's move to number 9.
Perfect.
Okay, now we're on number 9. Okay.
so then with the long-range plan, if we're doing Lafayette and Central, but that plan wasn't, the way I took it from the last meeting, that plan wasn't really thought out through, are we not going to maybe stop and take a look what really needs to happen, or start over with Plan B to, like, why are we?
Dr. Edgar is very much leading the long-range plan right now, just to make it very clear. We've met just a couple of times. We met on Friday for just a little bit, but we need that data piece from DLR on Friday. They're gonna come walk through both of those high school buildings. Principals are aware of that. Hopefully they've informed their staff to look at the spaces. We know the capacity was done, I believe, in 2019 by DLR, but since then, we've had a lot of other services and programs put into place, ELD department being one at Central, special education department there, the programs at Lafayette with targets. And so our purpose of that is to determine capacity in those buildings to see what our next steps are. I know on that long-range plan, it talked about potentially running another bond issue for renovations. We have to look at all of those pieces. And so that's all where we are right now. That's all that we have to update, is that DLR is coming on Friday. And until we have that information back, that's kind of where we're at.
And then as I understood it, like, if you look at the long-range plan, if Plan A, if it would have passed, it was like a plan about the schools, about the feeder patterns and everything like that, okay, but there isn't that right now for Plan B.
Correct.
Well, and that's what it's what your goal is now in order to create that plan.
Right, so we started to
Plan
talk
B.
about options on Friday, but it's really hard to do that without the information from DLR
Right.
about the two high schools. Everything kind of feeds
The high
out.
schools are where the dominoes start.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really it. Once you have the high school configuration figured out, then you can figure out what do we do in middle school. Then you can figure out what we're doing in elementary and build those feeder patterns and everything. But it has to start with that allocation of those two buildings and figuring out how many you're putting in each building, where you're drawing boundaries from there. Because we're trying to do this systemic thing we've talked about, so that we don't have kids at one elementary going to 4 different middle schools. So we don't have kids at an elementary that end up at 2 different high schools and things like that. So I hope people understand. I know the high school is all that get talked about, but it's not just about the high schools. That's just where the domino has to start. So then we can, once we have the alignment there, then we can figure out what are we doing alignment-wise with middle school. Then we can figure out alignment-wise what we're doing with elementary. So we can make that systemic change that we've talked about doing as a whole. But I think everybody hears high school, high school, high school, and they think that we're not doing anything else.
Right.
And so we want to clear that up. That's just the first piece of it.
Well, and then I also think, in the community, everyone's kind of a little bit confused about the plan of the district. Well, and I want it known, here's our plan, even if others in the community are like, it can be changed, it can be done like this. No, here's our plan, here's what we're doing, and we're going forward. Am I correct on this?
You are, but let me clarify or add on to that. And you guys know this, we spent a whole lot more time on Plan A and ironed out all of those details. And we had just a little portion of Plan B going to 2 high schools. Some of those details that we're talking about with feeder patterns from elementary to middle, none of that was determined, obviously, because we weren't preparing for it to fail. And so that's where we're gonna start, is looking at Central and Lafayette and determining what the needs are there, and then build around that.
I think one of the things, your point of the 2 high school conversation always takes over when we start talking about right sizing and configuration. When we know, and anyone that's paid attention knows, we have issues of capacity at elementary schools, large and small. We have the 6, 7, 8, 7, 8 issue. We have all of those other issues. And so my hope is that we can come up with a Plan B that we can control on our own. Like, it can't be something, in my opinion, it can't be something that hinges on some sort of outside vote. It has to be something that we can control with the facilities that we have. Because we've talked about all of these things, I don't have the handout from last time, the inequity in what we're providing educationally, the resources that different buildings have. When we talk about not implementing these plans or kicking the can down the road, the only people in town that are struggling and suffering are our kids and our staff. So, I've heard talk about we won't change anything until 27 or 28, or then it's 26 and then it's 27. I don't want us to look at, oh, well, we're gonna do this in a couple of years. Like, there has to be a sense of urgency. My 2 cents.
I would agree. I think we have to do that from the staffing standpoint.
Mhm.
And I shared with you, I think, last week that we had 3 science openings at Lafayette alone.
Mhm.
That's hard to fill.
Mhm.
So,
But I
We're in a-
appreciate you going after data. You
Sure.
need concrete because that's what's going to be convincing, not just opinion or a picture.
right. And we
So
want to
they
do
have
right
to
by
have
our
data.
kids.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one thing we've talked about too is that when we do it, we want to make sure that we're doing it right so that in a year or 2, we don't have to then redraw boundaries again, move kids again. We don't want to disrupt students multiple times. I mean, that's why, yes, I agree with you, it needs to be done, but I also, I'm not going to be here, but we want to do it so that we do it right when we do make that move, that we don't say, hey, we're gonna make this change, we're gonna do these boundaries, we're gonna do these feeder patterns, and then 2 years later go, hey, we've got to shift that. And so,
Well, I think that's where, I know you guys had a really large group when you came up with the long-range plan as far as the superintendent's cabinet, but I do think building level input, because I know DLR is gonna come in and say, this is how much space you have. Well, they don't know that Edison's library has been cut into 4 more classrooms or, things like that. So I think making sure that we have building level input, because I know a lot of them were like, where are we gonna put 100 extra kids? So I think that's gonna be an important part of it.
well, and I'll just add, and then I'll be quiet, but, I've said this a lot of times, that from a long-term district viability standpoint, I think it's hard to hear, but it's the truth for our community to hear this, is that we have staffing and we have facilities for 11,500 kids, but we have 10,400 kids. And that is, from a financial standpoint, step away from the right thing to do educationally, totally agree, the right thing for students and everything, but I will tell you from a financial standpoint, it's not sustainable long-term, okay? And we can all be upset and don't like that and don't like to hear that. I'm just saying that's the reality. The reality is you can't continue to try to staff and have facilities for 11,500 students when you're only getting funding for 10,004. That's just the reality. And so, it's kind of like they say, you can take care of your body, or at some point your body's going to tell you have to take care of it. Well, you can take care of the district, or at some point the district is going to tell you you have to take care of it. And then you have to close buildings, and then you have to cut staff in ways that you don't want to. And so that's why, as I leave this district, and I, long time in this community, I want to see this thing be successful. That's the big piece of the long-range plan, is what is best, not individually today, and I get it. People have a lot of attachment to things and want things to be good. And they want it in different ways, and I understand that. But we may be forced to look at what is viable long-term for the health of the district and what's best for our students long-term, so.
Well, I mean, short term, it's not great either. With 3 openings at Lafayette, like we
Right.
have problems short term.
We're seeing the front edge of that
Yeah,
already. Yes.
right.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think the other thing that, and I think we talked about this a lot, we've been talking about this for so long, but one of the things that we talked about, I think when we had the facilities committee, was, people that didn't want to put money into old buildings. And I get that, but we can only do what we can control. I think we saw success, and I know Kansas City saw success in their bond issues, but they had, what, a 338 million no tax increase bonding capacity in Lee Summit or Kansas City, 400?
Lee Summit's 225, no tax increase.
Yeah, so, I mean, we just don't have that bonding capacity, 157 million was already a tax increase. So I do think we saw success last year when it was a no tax increase. We come back this year, we'd already gotten, money for staff. I don't know, I think we're gonna have to do some things that we can control. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions about the long-range plan right now?
I think the only thing I worry about is that we're gonna look at Lafayette and Central, and we're just gonna put these kids there because that's what we said we would do. Not that I'm saying we shouldn't go forward with the long-range plan. I agree with everything you say, but I'm just saying, at some point, I mean, if it wasn't well thought out in the first place, I mean, is it really feasible to put them in Central and Lafayette now? I mean, can we not,
That piece has been well thought out.
has it?
Yeah, I disagree we were doing it just for this, because we said we were gonna do it. That's not true.
Okay.
We're doing it with the best interest of the students, looking forward financially for the district. How long can we sustain what we've been doing? So I take issue with we're doing it because we said we were gonna do it.
Okay.
And I would add on to that, if you guys come back and you're like Benton and Lafayette, Benton and Central, Eugene Field, we wanna make, I mean, I don't, obviously,
Agreed.
that's-
By the
you
way,
know what I mean?
agreed.
I don't care what you come back with, I don't care what building it is, I don't care where it
Yeah.
is. If you guys come back and you say, okay,
Correct.
we've focused our time and our attention, and we think these two schools, I don't care about that, I just care about
You're right.
a
The
plan that's
only
best.
reason it was Central and Lafayette was because that was the board's understanding of capacity
Size.
availability and size.
Yeah.
Contrary to what you read online, this is not a veiled way to close Benton.
No.
It is not, and never has been.
Thank you for saying that, I appreciate it.
It's about right sizing.
Yes, yes, and setting the district up for long-term financial and academic success.
I do
We're gonna get
appreciate
there.
that, Whitney, because you're getting the data from the buildings, what the capacity is now,
Yeah.
how they're built, and what they're capable of and what they cannot do. That's the meat of what you're headed for.
Right.
So it could change. It doesn't have to change, but it could. And to be open for just that right sizing.
Well, and I think we've seen that Lafayette and Central are two biggest of the three schools, so that makes sense. But like I said, if you guys come back with something different, fine.
Agreed.
Yeah, because when we start looking at elementary schools and the capacity of what they will hold, just because we say this school at this point in time, that may not work that way, so.
Well, we're gonna have a discussion about what the capacity numbers actually mean, because I was really surprised
Right.
Yeah,
to find out that the capacity number might not be the capacity number.
right, because you can count how many rooms are in the school, and you can add or multiply or whatever the
Yeah.
mathematical equation is you want to use for the number of kids, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're realistically
Right.
being used.
Right, and that's what we
in-
need to hear. That's
Yeah,
what-
in any building
Yeah.
I'll just
in the
clarify
district.
too, some of those spaces that have been converted to support services and office spaces can also be converted back.
Right.
And so we just
Right.
have to take a look at that.
Right.
Yeah, because sometimes when there's extra space, you use it differently.
Yes, and you need it.
Yeah. And then maybe
I
you don't.
appreciate your
Yeah.
guys' support. We'll continue to move forward. It probably will get a little uncomfortable, but we'll move forward.
It's okay, looking forward to it.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Board policy review process, my favorite. Okay.
I've been reading it.
Do we get paid by the hour to do that? I just want to.
Oh, yes, and I
Double check
take
on that.
vacations with the money we receive.
It's double what your parents.
Okay, now I received questions and comments from Mike. He went out.
No, you did an awesome job.
In the meantime, Did anyone else have any questions, comments, or concerns that are not on Mike's list?
Actually used
He was
it.
very detailed.
He was.
Well, and the thing about it is ever since he was elected, I've been on his butt about the policies, and so as I looked at his email, he made me so proud, very proud.
I kind of used his to guide mine
Mhm.
too. So I copied his while I was looking at mine. And I also started, I don't know if we're calling it summer retreat now, I don't know what the new name, because it's not really a retreat, but,
Board workshop,
oh, thank you, okay.
yes.
I also kind of, from those policies, started a list for that, for us to work on some of the things this summer, so I'm gonna save that.
Okay, cool, and you can also, email that over, because I'm working with MSBA about the workshop and the topics and everything like that in order to
Yeah,
plan it, and
because
so like.
some of those
if you want-
bigger items are not, we don't have time to discuss right now,
Perfect.
but I thought we could look at those.
Thank you. A question that I had that Mike also had, it was actually not even a question really until I looked at the answer. It was about, Mike, I gave you props and you missed
Missed all
it.
your praise.
Oh, I
I gave you
did?
lots of praise. You're gonna have to watch the meeting because I'm not repeating it.
Thanks, thank you.
But, on policy BCE, and you were asking about the committees. And then I think that you responded, Ashley plans to bring the committees back. What's the process?
I thought you and I had talked about that.
Yes, only not like in a lot of detail about, how we were going, to go about that, and so,
I think there was value when we, at least for academics committee, we were able to dive a little deeper into some of those topics. So like Stacia may have even elaborated a little bit more, and we could bring things to you. And we had some community members on there. I think the key for us was being able to set that agenda to give you the information. Of course, if you have something you want to know, we'd be happy to present on that. I know it got a little hairy there and we had to shift and go to board work sessions. But if you guys think that would be more beneficial to go back to a committee structure, I think it was beneficial. I'd be open to that.
Because it wasn't. Like, I guess my thing would be, how are we gonna do it differently? Because we ended it because the administration requested us to.
They became public, and so participants were able
Yes,
to
that makes
participate, and I think that's when it went
Off the
south.
board.
I also think
That's
if
when it
we
got
used to have them 3 years ago when I started in this position, we had them during the day. We were like the second Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and that seemed to work well. We had certain people on that committee that were standing members of that committee and would attend regularly.
I like the original process that you're talking about.
I miss those.
Just because I know that we were able, to get a lot of work accomplished. And then once we changed them in order, to open it up, and then anyone was able, to participate, we really didn't get anything done. And it was just mainly a gripe session about anything on my mind. I'm just going, to appear, and I'm going, to grandstand. And it was a waste of everyone's time, and then it caused lots of conflict, and I'm not allowing that this time. And so, if your way is the original way, I'd love that. I think it was productive.
One idea.
I think the other thing, when we did it that way, we have people campaigning for office every year. So then you get around January, February, they start getting busy with candidates. But I think the hardest part was people would come in, they hadn't been there before, and then they're asking questions that we've already talked about 2 meetings before. So you're having to catch them up, spending a lot of time on that. I wouldn't have a problem if we went back to, I can't remember if this is maybe after your first year. Well, I guess it was 2 summers ago, when everybody just appointed, and I think that's the way the city council does it, is everybody just appoints someone to those committees.
Like each board member?
Yeah, like each board
Yeah, and
member,
that's easier.
so much easier.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I think that's when it got a little hairy too.
But I think
Yeah,
that
'cause I
the
thought we could
difference,
go
the
to
difference with that was when we had board members that were in charge of a committee, and then those groupings had to decide on people, cause then we had the problem on the facilities committee, is that we weren't going to follow the same rule for everyone else, where I think if you just said, here's the committees that we're gonna have, cause we haven't talked about climate and culture, really, at least not the rate we were before. If we could just say, okay, there's 7 board members, everybody pick someone to be on some of these boards, or on these committees.
I'm selfish enough, I can, and I have that time, I'd like to be on all of them, just as an observer or participant, because I like the data, I like the information. And done like we were at the beginning, I really appreciated it.
yeah, I think
And
that's
it's
fine. I mean, everybody, I normally
Yeah.
attend all the committee meetings, you know, okay? It's not like, it's like I'm in charge of the committee.
I'm not
I think that's
interested
where
in
we
that.
fell apart.
Yes.
Is only the 2 board members that were on that committee assigned to that committee. Where now it's like, if we could do kind of a blend of that, 5
You're
committees.
saying every committee, I can appoint a person to the committee?
Yeah, so there's 7 board members, there's gonna be 7 people appointed, plus board members can go, and each board member.
If they
so I'm
want to
gonna-
or not?
I'm gonna appoint 5 people. I get 1 for each committee.
Well, and then I also liked, you made a good point. In the daytime,
Yeah.
because, you know, I mean, you guys are also a part of the committee. Well, and then in the evening time, it's your extra time, their extra time
Yeah.
at these meetings, and that's not fair. I mean, I know that you're not getting overtime, you know, to be here, so.
And staff didn't come, that's
No,
the
I
point
think
of
that
that.
was the intention of having them, I think it was 4:30 or 5:30, so that staff would come. I kept track on my Google Doc of what staff came
Right.
each month. I mean, it was very minimal.
Yeah.
I asked staff to come
Yeah.
sometimes, and I counted them on there, but for the most part, staff didn't come.
You're
And I
talking-
get it.
you're
I
talking
kept
about
track as
really
well.
watching.
Yeah.
So, one other thing, I think it's important that everybody's on the same page, and so whoever's the administrator in charge of that committee could do notes and then submit that to Donna and have that be on the consent agenda, or we could send that in a weekly update, however you wanna do that.
Did we have minutes at the last?
We had board members reporting.
Oh, that was
at-
terrible.
Giving a report.
It just makes it a
Yeah.
little bit more lengthy, but I would be happy to do that. I think other administrators would be happy to do that, condense it a little bit.
We'd like your weekly report.
Correct.
I like the one.
Just kind of note bullets
Yeah.
of those items.
But the administrator's
Well,
in
it's
charge of the
like-
Yeah.
committee,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
And I think we'd be
Because you
happy
know
to
the
do the
stuff.
notes too, because we're already having kind of notes for an agenda, so it would make
Well,
sense.
they're all, even if you didn't have, notes are fine, but they're also all televised.
Yeah, I mean, well, also, okay, so
Committee meetings.
which committees are you talking
They're
about?
still open.
Like
I
a
would
policy
love to-
committee?
I would love to take that back to our soups cabinet and just iron out
Okay,
which
good.
ones we think
Good.
are,
I really like, did the last
we
time,
had academics.
did it follow Vision Forward last time? I thought it had like academics, facilities, climate and culture, which is where we like put personnel, or do we have?
Finance?
You had finance.
Facilities.
We could probably look it back up. But I do think part of the issue with facilities is that it kind of branched out into a lot of different things. It really wasn't, we didn't spend any time on facilities of talking about who didn't have HVAC.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, it really just became morphing into long-range plan, where I feel like some of it should have been sidewalks, where are we going next? Where are we going next with HVAC? Who needs a new gym floor, things like that.
And then, if the board's, able to make it good, if not, it's online and we can watch it. Like, I don't want, how should I put this? I don't want us to derail progress. If that makes any sense.
And then it'd be very beneficial, just gonna throw this out there, so for example, Stacia presenting that, if she could present that there, and then it could be just an action item. So it could save us a little bit of,
What would you
Time
take
possibly,
away,
too.
and I would be fine with it, because we didn't have work sessions. I mean,
Right.
Right.
So we would
Right.
just have the committee meetings, and I would be fine with that.
So just to be clear too, these committees would include community members as well, right?
we had those on,
Yeah,
they were
there
on
were
the
Yes.
board.
that
And I
just-
think
The
that's
only
helpful,
change is
too.
that everyone will appoint a person. Well, and then it's just equal engagement on every committee.
Every board member will appoint?
Yeah, like
Yes.
if there was 5 committees,
Yeah,
each of us would say, okay, each
if
of
you
us
wanted to or
appoint-
not.
Yeah, each of us would say, I'm gonna appoint one person to each committee.
And I would recommend that administrators appoint that person.
I
just
would
gonna-
too.
Because I know that got a little ugly last time.
It did.
Well, again, I think that got ugly because we had 2 board members that felt like they had ownership of that committee, and then we're going against each other. I don't have a problem, and we also had like an odd number of committee seats. So that
I
was
think that
also
last
weird.
time, I think that the board became too territorial over committees.
Agreed.
Well, and if we do it like this, then everybody has equal say in the committee members. We are an elected, I guess, representation of the committee, and so us choosing an individual would ensure equal community representation on the committee.
Well, and the board members are kind of selecting someone as their kind of like a proxy, like here's someone whose opinion I appreciate or whatever. That's likely gonna be a broad spectrum of people.
I
Because
just
then in
think
all
it-
honesty, all of us,
It's less productive.
we've got jobs. And there will be a lot of times when we're not able, to make a committee meeting. And so, I mean, especially if there's like 4 or 5 committee meetings, I'm not needing, to leave my job in the middle of the day numerous times a month.
Sure, and we can work out the details of
Mhm.
the committees. But
think-
I know that, I saw that was on one of the policies
Mhm.
as well.
I think it's an excellent idea. This is what I wanted. I love when we have committees.
Well, and it seemed originally that it was people who were really interested
Yes.
in the topic. If it was academics, you had teachers, retired teachers, whoever, had a heart for that kind of thing. Facilities, same thing. All of that was attended by those who cared about the topic. And not just to be filling a chair. They came. Some came every meeting and became a part of that process. Had good input and good ears and listened.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so using Mike's list as a guide, thank you again, Mike. BBF3, a question about ethics, and if there's like a breach of the ethics, and I will get like a formal response, okay, but we are, a governing body that kind of governs ourselves, pretty much. But I will get like a formal
Yeah, 'cause
answer for you.
I had written here too, does MSBA have information
Mhm. Yeah.
about that?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
was
and
at the
I can get that for
MSBA
you.
training, which was excellent. And I've asked the same questions. That's why you really hit a lot of my questions as well. But the MSBA, I did ask them, and then pretty much it's the same. I mean, there isn't,
There's not much.
No.
there's not much.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess it's good to have it written, as that's our intention, but
Right, right,
little recourse.
right.
Well, and one of the things I put on the summer retreat, I didn't write down which policy it was, but about board evaluations, I think
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
mentioned
There's a question
something
about
about
that. Yeah,
that
that's
too.
coming up.
Yes.
BK.
Yes, and I've got the answer to that too.
Okay, cool.
Got the answer to that too.
Because maybe if we were doing that, like the policy states, maybe that would take care of whatever might come up for BBF 3.
Well,
Yes.
we can't expect less of ourselves than we do of the staff and the community, even those who come and sit here. So I don't think we can expect a poorer behavior out of us than what we
I think this
determine.
is a slippery, and I think we've learned this. This is and I think, we actually had Dwayne come in and I talked about this. It becomes a slippery slope because what some people feel like is ethically inappropriate, other people do not. And really, you'd spend a lot of time policing each other, which is fine, I suppose. But really, your only recourse is a censure. So it just becomes kind of a tit for tat issue for me.
Well, he called it buy-in. You have to buy in to good behavior.
I don't know, I just got done watching all those videos and reading these policies and listening to the MSBA. To me, it's pretty cut and clear of what the code of ethics are. I mean, I don't know how more direct it could be and how we should act. But it just bothers me, there is no repercussions or, I mean, it's just sign this line, but it's up to you whether you can obey or not.
Welcome to being an elected official.
I know.
Well, and the thing about it is, like, I may think it's okay that I act a particular way, but you can't act that way.
Uh-huh.
Well, and we need to get over that. I look at it like, I'm not able to be concentrated on if you're acting up or not. I've got kids, I've got a job. I'm too busy for that. I just need, to get the job done. I'll get you like a more professional answer though. Also on BDD H1, item number 10, you asked 2 questions in there, and you put "you are correct." To which question?
Let me look.
I mean, I know the answer, but I was just like, I highlighted it right there.
Admittedly, it's a
Okay,
lot.
BDH, okay. Does this mean the board can engage speakers during the audience participation portion of the meeting? Yes, you can.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay, but the only issue with that, it is not a recommendation of MSBA.
Right.
And the reason it is not is, like, if there's a speaker and they're choosing an agenda item in order to talk on,
right,
I don't know what they're gonna say.
right.
Well, and as you're like engaging, you may make a comment that is not actual factual. I'm not saying that you would, but I'm saying, or that is not approved under administration and their plans and their goals. Well, and that's how come when a person talks, we listen.
Yeah,
At times I make lots of notes and questions and everything like that, because we don't want to screw up, because we don't know what they're going to say. I mean, all that we can really say is, I do appreciate your comments.
yeah,
Thank you for your time.
yeah.
Well, if they only get 15 minutes and we're busy interacting, not everybody who signed up
Right.
might not be able to participate.
Right.
And they've come prepared to ask. So for me, it just opens up, it's all their time. All they get is 15 minutes. So I don't want to use up their time either. If it cuts somebody else
I think it
off
would be-
who has signed
I
in
brought
to
this up,
speak.
I think 2 years ago now. I do think sometimes it's hard, the way that we have open public comment structured is sometimes they're gonna see something on an agenda and they're gonna speak to it, not knowing exactly what we're going to talk about with it. I do like how the city council structures theirs, where you give a speaker card to that agenda item, and then you speak when that agenda item comes up, but then there's also another period at the end, we don't have to do that part, theirs is different, where you can come talk about your blinking street light, I mean, whatever, I mean, I don't think we wanna open up to just carte blanche, but, I do think being able to talk either, I don't remember exactly how they do it. I think they have general discussion, then you can talk and ask questions.
Public participation is normally like afterwards. Because lots of times, we will listen, well, and then it's addressed like an hour later on in the meeting, you know?
Right.
Well, and I think sometimes too, especially when they come with questions or whatever, then we just sit and listen, and then I feel like we're not acknowledging what they've talked about, and it looks like we're just listening and ignoring them, and
And
that to me
yes.
is uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is.
Couple scenarios I see is sometimes there, you know, a question or something is kind of asked, and we all just kind of sit here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Smile at them and,
Like when Dr. Hedge brought up,
Yeah.
what was he talking about?
But-
But
Yeah,
you
that's-
knew because it was from the last
Yeah,
time.
that's actually, I
Yeah,
had
that's what
no
he was
idea.
talking about.
Yeah,
I
had
know,
no idea.
so then I didn't know if the rule is after the board meeting, if I can go ask him what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Or, but I just feel like he just
Yeah.
said it, and we're all like,
Anyway, yeah.
yeah.
But I agree, when I'm sitting out there and I've seen people ask questions and then they don't get the answer, and I'm just like, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway,
The problem is that we want like, the correct answer and
right.
a whole answer, and not only a Mike answer or only a Whitney answer, you see what I'm saying?
But I do like the idea of either after, if their question changes, or during the topic time. I mean, they've got to sit here for 3 hours sometimes if they're willing to do that,
Well, if you
but
really
maybe their
care,
question
yeah.
gets answered during the
Right.
topic.
So is that how it works then, Whitney, at the city council meeting?
City
They,
council.
do they have back and forth interaction then with speakers then?
I mean, I think it kind
It's
of
in
goes
the time.
against their full amount of time. They only get, what, 3-5 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes against their time, but if a councilman has questions about, like, tell me about that, what are you talking about that, then they can ask them
Okay.
and get them back. But I think the other thing is nice when you go to city council meetings is that you can weigh in on it before they vote on it, but it's in the correct time. So sometimes they're like, what you're talking about isn't actually what we're voting on or whatever.
Okay. Well, that would make it more relevant in the moment, rather
Yeah.
than hearing it at the beginning of the meeting and an hour and a half later, then we talk about it.
Yeah, seems like we can make that a little more effective somehow.
Is that a request in order to move the audience unit? Well,
Or to
I
adjust.
guess we would need, to put it as an agenda item next time and then have to vote on it in order, to move the agenda officially.
Yeah, because you would have to change your policy.
Yep.
Well, would you wanna have, I guess we can ask staff to put this together and bring it back or whatever, but would you wanna have this is work session agenda, so it's not in there. Would you want to have public comment at the beginning and in the middle,
No, I was thinking,
or just move it throughout?
like, if you're looking, like, okay, so like, if I want to speak on the long-range plan, well, and then I do like a comment. Okay, well, I'm able to speak after discussion, before the vote.
Yeah, and I think that they do that, I don't know if it's intentionally, Paula Heidi would know, but I don't know if they do it when there's a motion in a second and then you get to comment and then the public comment starts. Because if you don't have a motion in a second, then there's nothing to really speak to.
It's
I
no
don't know.
point, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, but the cards are still like turned in at the beginning of the meeting. It's not like in the middle of the meeting, I want to speak your card and then you're able to fill it out. No, it's not like that.
And go buy your own
Oh,
index
sure.
cards and.
So Dr.
Sure.
McGinnis, how do you think the staff would feel of changing it to something like that. So in the moment, if Ms. Studer's up here talking or she has presented something, and then a community member wants to ask a question or make a comment.
Is that what we're talking about? Because I was thinking of more like a board meeting agenda, and we're talking about, whatever, we'll go with long-range plan, because you said that one. So when it's time for that one, then you call up
Yeah.
Mr. Jones.
Call it up.
Do you want to speak to this
You have to
item?
sign up ahead of time.
Right.
But then,
Declare
when you
what?
come to that topic, then, we'll call up whoever has signed up to speak to
That's how I
it.
interpret the
Yes,
conversation.
yes.
So
It's
then Ms.
not
Studer
like,
could answer it
That's right.
in her presentation, if it's
Then she
possible.
would have to come back up, I guess.
Well, if the comments first,
Yeah.
then she presents, then it could be covered perhaps.
well, I thought
that
the
what we're
comment
talking
is
about?
afterwards.
Is it after?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think so. And I mean, they have staff at city council meetings that give up and say, here's this item and here's why we wanna do it, la la la, and then they have the
And
speaker
then-
card.
Yeah.
And
I think it would be
usually,
nice for you to hear that feedback before you engage in dialogue, after you,
Mhm.
and then go two-way communication if needed.
So then maybe I should already know this, but do we not have audience participation in our work sessions ever?
No.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, we're just now getting the information and asking the questions, and then it's a time in order to let us work.
Right.
And it could be just information, it could never
Mhm.
go any further than
Right.
the work session.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
And so, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I'm getting more information on BDDH 1 about the process in order to bring this to a vote, or are you asking admin something about this, or no?
Me?
Yeah.
Are you talking committees?
No.
No.
No, 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 no.
That's
No,
our
the
audience
inter-
participation.
I'm ready for a break.
Okay, so never mind. I think I'm right.
the open comment,
Yes.
the public comment period for the agenda.
Well,
I mean, we can't.
okay, so are we okay in order to put this on the agenda as an action item in order to move the audience participation and to do, and to change the policy in order to reflect that? Did you get all that? Because in my mind it made sense, but I don't know if it made sense when it was
And so you
doing
wanna
this.
approve it in May and then
Mhm.
implement in.
Implemented in June, right.
So make it topical. So I'm signing up to talk about the long-range plan.
Yes.
I wait, and there it goes. So that's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah,
And that,
we need to
okay.
change it within the policy
within the
Yep.
policy, yeah.
before we implement it
Yep.
within your.
So we need to make sure we know if they're speaking before or after the topic.
It's gonna be after our conversation,
before the
Um,
vote.
ahead of the vote.
And
Okay.
just so you know,
Mhm,
anytime you change a policy like this,
mhm,
I have to send it to the lawyers
right.
at
Sure.
MSBA, so they make
Mhm.
sure that it is within legislative or whatever.
Mhm.
No, that's good.
Before we can actually put it into practice.
Mhm.
So,
I think that would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I think that would just make me feel more like I'm valuing what they have to say rather than just smiling and,
Me too.
Well, it's also
nodding my
weird when
head.
you go from like one subject to another subject, back to that subject to another, it's like,
and then we
Well,
start the
then-
meeting.
Yeah.
And then I just feel just bad.
yeah.
Me
And
too,
you go
I
from-
feel
We
really
can
bad.
address it.
Because I'm like, and I have to look them in the face and say, thank you, and that's all, and I'm just
I
like,
don't like it.
ugh.
Thank you,
Yeah,
but I'm just
so-
going to look at you in this awkward smile.
Yeah,
Just nod.
yeah.
Do the
Okay,
princess
so,
wave,
Good.
right?
That's right.
okay, so moving on,
Hold up, Latanya. On that same one, it says residents can place items on the agenda.
There is a policy for
Related to
that.
the governance and operation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not sure
yes,
community members know that.
yes. Well, and it's not a policy, it's not just I'm gonna email us, and then at the next meeting, I'm able to get on the agenda. No, no, no.
Correct, but
It's a pretty lengthy,
there is a process
Yes.
that they have to follow through, but they
Yes.
can if they go through that process.
yes.
So I think that's valuable for them to know, to go through the process. If
Yeah.
there's really something they would like addressed or have questions on,
And
Well,
we have had
And there's been
people
people,
it's what I
call or
thought.
email asking to have something put on the agenda. And what I do is I explain to them, this is the process. I will forward it on to Latanya and Dr. Edgar. So,
well, and then a lot of times it gets
I thought we did. but
answered or like
nobody knows.
yeah,
addressed, and it never makes it at a meeting.
right.
Because during the process,
Yes.
it's handled. Yeah,
Mhm.
well, that's the preference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point, thank you. BDDLAF, and you're asking about the form, to do a request, a sunshine request. Well, I know legal, is like if a person asks, it is a request. Can we still ask the person to do the form, just as like a formality?
We can.
I think that keeps it more uniform.
I think it's-
Yeah,
yes.
I just noticed, everything I've ever seen just came in on an email. And so when there was a form, I was actually learning for the first time. I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes it more uniform,
Yeah,
And everybody's having to do the
makes it
same
more
thing.
orderly, and everyone's having to do the same thing. And that's already in the policy, and that's cool. Okay.
Let's try to repeat the number of that one.
BDDL AF1. BHE, and you're asking about insurance,
oh, yeah, I was just curious.
about the board.
Yeah, it said district can take insurance out on us?
Well, we have
That's scary.
insurance, like,
It's a way to raise money, I
It's a
guess.
board and officers policy,
as a board.
but you can get sued by yourself.
It's not individual, it's only as a board.
Okay. So they can still sue Mike Moore.
They can sue Mike Moore.
And it's not like this.
Perfect.
Okay, now Mike, you put as a question,
Uh-oh.
Mike, last questions next time.
Yeah, I had no idea this was all gonna come up in.
no, it's
You
great.
did a really awesome job.
You're the center of attention.
You asked the
right?
question, BK, a board evaluation.
Yeah,
We did that together last fall.
We didn't follow, I thought we did it in the summer, May.
Nope, because I brought mine,
Huh.
because I'm organized. I'm not, I'm just friend. But, we, September 16th.
oh, I kinda remember that. Was MSBA part of that?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
But I had the hardest time with that because it was long between
Yeah.
taking it
Uh-huh.
and then getting results. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I said.
Yeah,
Oh.
Okay.
that's the
Yeah, but
hardest.
we
Remember
do
that? She
have
came
one.
and
I remember it
facilitated.
now,
Yes.
yes.
And I think
So
it's right,
it's-
we need to do
it's
it
real
every year,
meaningful, huh?
just to police ourselves.
Well, I remember taking some stuff away from it at the time. It just didn't stick much, I guess.
Because when I read that, I'm like, am I crazy? Because that you're like, I don't recall, and then I look at your answer, and it's like, and you're like, we haven't done this in 10 years, and I'm like,
I
Well,
don't think you were there.
we've done it once then.
yeah, because
this
I was
was
just
it.
like, I know
This
I
was
was there. I have the information. Okay, so,
So we
Well,
take
you
it every
said-
fall then?
well, it was our
It was-
first time doing it.
It
Yeah.
was-
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, and so, but we can plan on it in the fall again.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. I mean, that was
I think
good
it's-
stuff. I just don't think I connected that with our evaluation.
Yes.
I thought it might have been some other kind of
So
survey.
because there's
thing.
too much time in between
Yeah.
for
Yes.
me,
Yeah, good.
Yes.
life happens in between.
Okay, and then now PK,
What?
and that PK, I'm getting tired.
Okay.
Cape, let me go back.
You're-
Okay,
we're on
so-
the Ks now.
Are there any other questions, comments, suggestions on amendments, and anything in the Bs, other than what we've already said? There are none?
Well, there are just some things I would just like to add, because the BBF talks about duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of public trust. Just to make sure, as we're talking about ethics, those are the things that are uppermost in my thinking. Remembering, because number one under that was the welfare of our students, to always keep that uppermost, to be careful. And I think that stems, to me, that covers what we speak out here, what we put on social media, those kind of things where we're representing, it looks like ourselves, but it ends up representing the board. So, to me, part of that comes under a duty of care. As a board member, that's part to create unity and comfort with the community. Being transparent.
Which one are you talking about?
This is BBF that's talking about those 3 issues, and then there's numbers underneath there.
BBF.
BBF, duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of public trust, and then it lists some things.
Are you wanting to change this, or why are we talking about this?
No, I just wanted to talk about it. That's what I told them.
We're looking at.
Could you-
BBF. It comes under the ethics. So that's just an expansion of what he was talking about.
BBF is school board member ethics.
Correct.
Now, and where underneath that?
So it has those 3 things,
Oh,
duty of
duty of
care,
care.
duty of loyalty, duty of public
Okay.
trust, and then there's 7
Oh, okay.
things listed underneath there.
Okay, weird. Because mine are numbered a little differently. No,
That's
no,
school board vacancy.
no. Okay, so. I don't know, but I'll look at yours. Okay, so,
So
She's not wanting to change it.
I'm not
Okay.
wanting to
She's just
change. You said
wanting-
it comments, and this is a comment, that
Okay.
to be careful under those subjects with our kids. And it says, recognize that number 5, that the board acts only as a formally convened body. And individual board members have no independent authority to speak or act on the board's behalf unless they've been designated, which is usually by a majority of the board to do that. So there are a couple places like that that talk about us only being able to act as a group. If we're standing in for the board, we have to act as a board, not individually, not making decisions individually, not
We don't have any.
doing those.
can you give me an example?
What's the issue?
Because I don't really know what you mean. Like,
Acting as a board?
no, I'm talking about, like, are there
I'm just gonna give you an
issues
example.
with members of the board acting as a board and there's not the authority in order to do so?
I'm going to give you an example,
Okay.
because during that Prop 2, when the map was posted, I didn't know about that map any sooner than anybody in the community. So I felt like, as a board member, since I'm going to be asked questions about that map that had the big oval circle on it,
That was in the board meeting. That was in the closed board.
no, it wasn't. There was no such picture, no nothing in that board meeting. We didn't talk about posting anything like that. So that was just something that sticks out in my mind, that as a board, it would be nice to be ahead of it before it gets in the media.
Oh,
That's what I'm referring to.
I see what you're saying, and I agree. Just like I mentioned earlier about the mission and the vision survey. You would just want,
A heads up. Hey,
That was
or
in the
prior
have
notice.
a,
Okay, but
have a
that's-
meeting.
it was
I'm
in
not
the
finished
email.
yet, please.
Well,
I didn't see it.
okay,
in
but
the
that's
email.
not the, how,
But
is
that's
that
what
members
we're
of the
talking
board
about.
acting like, I guess I just don't get it. Well, because that's not members of the board acting as the board as a whole.
Correct, it wasn't acting as a board as a whole because I didn't get to see it ahead of time. And I would have liked to. I don't check my email an hour before a news media is coming on to see a picture.
There were several emails.
Am I not
and we-
being-
I don't
We
think so.
talked, but also, I think to your point, that wasn't a board decision, that was,
Yeah,
I
I
believe
mean-
there was an email between Gabe and, I can't remember, was it DLR and the attorneys? There were several emails about it.
But
that's
here's the
not-
point
it's not
of
a
that.
board issue.
Correct, but it is stated as the board has decided that this is the land area where we're going to be talking about. So when you are including us in that decision, I would like to see it ahead of time, instead of saying, hey, this is something that the vice president, the president, and the superintendent thought it would be helpful to put this picture out. It was, people asked me as a board member, well, what is that picture supposed to represent? Well, I had no idea,
But we
because I had
also-
not seen it yet.
But we also approved in the previous closed session, a agreement on land, and there were emails about, yes, we did. It was like
I don't
March
recall it like
6th,
that,
March-
because not all the land was available.
Okay, well, but that's just board communications. I don't feel like that's a board decision. It was board communications in agreement with the superintendent. And I will say, I feel like we spent the better part of a year in 2023 having these kind of tic-tac conversations about who's violating ethics, who we think is not doing what other people want, or how the board president is speaking to people. I just think some of that, it just gets in the way of the work and making decisions.
Here's the deal for me. If she asked my opinion on these policies, I would like to be able to give it.
Sure.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to do, is give her my opinion, because if we, and you asked, any other questions, any other comments about the policy, that's what I've done.
So you wanna change
Well,
So I
well,
made-
when I did ask about, like, I asked you to clarify. And to
And that
my
was my
understanding, I guess that I'm just unaware of anybody speaking for
I'm
the
not
board
trying-
except for me.
But you don't need to try to figure it out. That was just
Well,
something of
I
mine.
just want to
That I want to make
understand
sure that
order
everybody's
to help.
included in, when we say there's something coming out from the board, that we all are involved in that. That's all.
There were
Just
emails,
talking
though.
about this. So here's my final one. It's that on the, are you headed into the Ks, right?
Are you out of the Bs now?
Yeah, because I just wanted to remind us that that's what that was about. That one in particular stuck out to me.
I'm still
Just,
Let's go on to the.
unclear, but,
yeah,
Wait a minute, can I have one more question about the bees?
yeah, that's fine.
One more.
You're good.
I need to ask about the whole scholarship.
You can,
So,
it's just one time a year.
it's just one time a year, but do we need to revise that policy? Because on these standing committees, it has a scholarship one too.
It's a part of the committees.
Yeah, we need to revise that
Yes.
whole policy, yes.
Okay,
If
but-
we go back to committees,
part-
we're gonna have to change it.
Yes.
Okay,
Scholarships will renew.
And I do understand, that there were questions about why Mike and I were chosen in order, to do,
so you two did the scholarships then?
yes,
Okay,
yes. And we were chosen as the president and the vice president in lieu of there being any members of the board on the policy committee,
uh-huh,
because there is no policy committee.
When the scholarship started coming in, and when Sam came and started talking to me about them, I went to Gabe, and I said, we don't have set, I mean, we have, in policy, we have to have scholarship, and we have to have policy. So that's why those stayed, but I said, we don't have any board members assigned to this. And he was the one that said, we will go with the president and vice president.
Okay.
So
Nope, I just
that's
didn't have that
how that came about. 'Cause I
And that
didn't-
was
I didn't know
also
who
on
to
the
contact.
recommendation of MSBA
Yeah,
as well.
because at that point, when I get them, I'm supposed to send them to whomever, and I didn't know who to.
Well, I know like the policy committee,
know.
I'm thankful that we decided to do ourselves because I think
Right,
Yes.
it's beneficial.
yeah.
So moving forward, next year, there will or won't be a scholarship committee?
Yes,
There
Okay.
will be.
there will
Okay.
be.
Well, and it's only needed, like,
Yeah,
it begins
All
in
those that
March,
we
I
approved,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, now can we go to K's? I
Yes.
think it'll be a little easier because Ks are mainly based upon the public and the community engagement. And there is a community engagement plan, it's in the CSIP.
Yeah, I saw that answer, thank you, Doug.
Yes, and you mentioned, KCAF about the members of the community engagement plan. Asking about who chooses those members?
Yeah,
And you mentioned that that's an Ashley question.
Well, because of the fact that that's an administrative
Mhm.
form, which would fall under
Yes.
her jurisdiction, is why I say that.
Because in all honesty, when I was looking at your questions, a lot of these are administrative duties.
Yes.
okay.
Anything that's an AF or an AP.
Yeah, I'll tell you, a lot of my stuff
Yeah.
was like just execution of the policies
Yeah.
or how it's working rather than
Well,
issue with the policy, you know?
yes. And the, like, execution of the policies, I mean, it's always admin, it's never really us. Are there any questions about this one? I know that you were asking about KLB AP1, and that's about the book challenges.
Yeah,
And you were asking that a board's decision is good for 5 years.
yeah, and that's by title, right? Is that how that works? So like if a piece of work, if a book is challenged, board makes it goes all the way to the board makes a decision for that particular title, board won't see it again for 5 years.
Right.
Is that the way you read that too?
Roger that.
Last year, I think we had talked about some revisions to that policy.
We did do that.
Yeah, I saw that was January 25 updated.
Yep.
I didn't know if there were more.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
consultation with our librarians.
Yeah, no, I
And
thought
then
that was,
also Ed Council.
yeah, and we got better from that whole process, right? So,
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, we're setting
Agreed.
ourselves up in a better situation if we were ever to go through that again.
agreed.
And you had a question about K?
I did just a comment when we're all done.
Okay. Did you have a
You can
question
see on
about
my
K?
face, can't
Yeah.
you? So KB1, AP1, okay, I know, I also sent the links as well, but I could not find it by school, and maybe that's something you can show me when I'm in the office, but I couldn't find it,
Was that the report cards?
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a
The
part of your,
School report cards, yeah.
it's actually a part of your onboarding with me.
Okay,
I'll be able to get you all that information.
and but does it show you school by school, where they're at?
I don't know if it's school by school, but I can find out and I can ask.
Okay.
You're talking the APR? That's
Yeah.
what I emailed you,
Yeah,
and I emailed you something else, I'm trying to look on here.
I
real
see by
quickly.
grades,
Mhm.
but I didn't see by school.
And the one I sent you was district-wide.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but Jesse breaks it down by school.
Yeah.
It's on there.
Does it?
I
Okay.
could
Yeah.
give you that.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
It's very
We just need to find
confusing.
I know,
Desi-
yeah.
Desi's website is horribly confusing,
I
at least to
like
me it
it.
is.
I do
like
like,
it
I
was
did
done.
have a good time going through that, it's interesting. but-
Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments?
Once you start, it started getting out.
I know that you've got a few about the board workshop.
Yes, I just have it written here.
Yes.
So,
Um,
I just had one about people using the district facilities,
okay, cool. And which one is that?
KI.
Okay.
Is there somewhere where the fees are listed as to what they are?
It's in the AP.
Okay,
Spent a lot of time fixing that 6 years ago.
I
okay.
think I saw that, yeah. I found it somewhere.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
That's one of the few policies I know of.
I'm glad I can make you feel successful tonight.
Okay, cool. Anything else about K?
Good.
Okay, Ms. Kim?
I will reserve it for our work session.
Okay, perfect. Also, speaking about that, I mentioned it a little bit earlier about, I'm planning out the afternoon and everything like that. If there are things that you're interested in, I would appreciate it if you would email me at least maybe by the board meeting, in order, I'll be able to plan all of that and everything. Because it's a process in order, to plan the workshop, and so I want everybody getting an opportunity to give input.
Was that date determined?
The 30th
Yes.
of June.
Yes,
June,
And
right?
are you
Yeah.
wanting presentations from departments?
yes.
The morning session will be the board.
Evaluation.
SBA?
Yeah, MSBA.
So
doing
us in the
board.
afternoon,
And then the afternoon,
Yeah.
and if you have specific topics.
We still have
yes.
MSBA policy updates. Which all of those guys are legislative driven. They come from MSBA,
Yeah.
getting our policies,
Saw
keeping them up to date. I have vetted all of these through the administration. They all are fine with them. They have no changes to them. So put them on here so you guys can see them. We will vote on them at the next meeting. And I do know, he's already told me he's got another set working.
Yeah, there's
so
more coming.
We've got more coming.
Yes. Are there any questions about any of those? Okay. We have a meeting in 2 days at the Noise Building, not at this building.
Right.
Mike?
I'll be online, actually.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna be online, I
Uh-huh.
forgot.
But I'll be with you
Yes, yes.
electronically.
And remember,
Your
email me your
AI.
questions, email me your
5:30.
questions. It is at 5:30 on Wednesday. And then the board meeting will be Tuesday the 27th. Also 5:30 in this room.
I will
Eh.
get final candidate applications out no later than 4 o'clock tomorrow. And I will also be posting the agenda soon after that.
Can we get the, packets of each applicant on Assembly?
Yes, I need to go through and pull out their personal information, but yes.
Will you please, I know you said it, what policies are we doing next and when do we need to have? I
There's
was
an
best-
email, there's an email schedule on that.
Okay.
Yes, 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 and it's attached.
It's attached to,
Yes. Our next ones,
because I still don't know this.
it will be A and D. Here, I'll give you
Thank
this.
you.
A&D.
Oh, I have that, I got it.
Yep,
Okay, it looks familiar now.
A&D.
yes.
A and D by June, right?
next work session?
June work session,
Okay,
A and D.
that's done.
By June work session?
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm loving looking at all these.
You need a motion to adjourn.
Yes, is there a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Whoever you want to give it to.
Ms. Miller.
Just put all, right?
Ms. Miller.
This is where they get,
Ms.
you're like, oh, you're
Williams.
not just
Yes.
like a.
Ms. Chesney.
Yes.
Ms. Kearns.
Yes.
Ms. Lanning.
Yes.
No, this-
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Bye now.
Here, can I keep this or do you need this?
Yep.